So the reason I was able to run for the United States Senate was because in addition to my base here in Chicago, I had spent a lot of time traveling around the state. And over time, I got to know people in parts of Illinois that would today be considered red. And I lucked out effectively that I was kind of under the radar screen, so political ads didn't characterize me. And people would meet me, even though I'm this Chicago lawyer from a liberal district with an Arab-sounding name, and but I'd show up, and then you'd have a conversation, and you'd talk about their kids and basketball and what was happening on their jobs, and people got a sense that my frames of reference and my values were not so different from theirs. And that gave me the ability to break through some of the assumptions that people might have otherwise had. And in some ways, Iowa was the same way. Yeah, I'm traveling around the state, as you know from having worked there. It's retail politics. You're going door to door. You're just talking to people. And we didn't have a huge amount of money, particularly initially, for TV ads, so it was just meeting people. And that does change people's assumptions when they get a chance to know somebody directly. So part of what we're going to have to figure out is how do we create greater opportunities. Now, that's true between red parts of the state and blue parts of the state. It's true even within the city of Chicago. I was yesterday with a group of young men who are part of a program designed to give them opportunities and pathways away from violence and crime. And these are some young people from 18 to 24. All were African American except one who was Latino, many of whom had already prison records and had done some pretty rough stuff. Several of whom had already been shot, in some cases multiple times. None of whom had grown up with fathers, many of whom had effectively been orphaned when they were very young. And so this would be the stereotypical profile of somebody who has a good likelihood of shooting or getting shot here in Chicago as part of the violence that has been plaguing the city. And what was striking when you sat down with these guys was they're young people. And if you had listened to them talking, you would recognize them as not that different from any other young man 18 to 24. What was different was their circumstances. They had grown up, in some cases, in foster care, or their mother was a drug addict, and they had been neglected. And so even within the city boundaries, a lot of times we will characterize our neighbors as something entirely different than us, that we can't understand and that we're afraid of and that we can't communicate with, and political rhetoric reinforces that. And they need to be heard too. And because if the six of you had been in that conversation, you would have come away not saying, oh, these are some thugs or super predators that I can't relate to. You'd actually say, man, if I had gone through what they went through, I'm not sure how things would have worked out for me either. And that creation of empathy then promises a different kind of civic response and political response than the one that so often we have. So that hearing other people, I think, is vital. And the question is, are there ways in which we can create opportunities to do that for more young people earlier on, before the lines of division start hardening? But Tiffany, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so just to add on to this about